Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Will see God figuratively or actually?
Mm.
And peacemakers see sons of God. What does sons of God mean? Aren't we all sons of God, Duke?
We are all children of God, that's for sure.
These are our topics and questions for discussion today in today's episode in Faith in Today's World. Hi, I'm Kevin Van Hall.
Hi, I'm Reverend Duke Lackey.
Hi, Duke. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for being a part of this. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
Really, it's funny as you read that. That doesn't make the headlines, does it? Pure in heart and peacemaker. That doesn't sound very exciting. It's like
not an easy thing to do either.
It's not an easy thing to do, but it's not. I don't hear any politician using that as a battle cry for their platform.
I like that battle cry because that's all it is a fight. Us against them. We're better than them. They are wrong. And there's no room for interpretation or understanding or wanting to understand how the other person sees things, feels. So we're continuing our discussion in Matthew chapter 5 is what I just read from the Beatitudes. Again, we start off with all of it's not easy and we don't understand all of it. The poor in spirit.
Right.
That's good to be, or mourn, or meek, or to hunger and to thirst. So Jesus is trying to let us know all these things that you think are weak and you shouldn't be doing actually is what God's wanting you to do.
That's where God is at work. That is where God is at work. And we think that God, if we win, we think winning means that God is on our side. And I think Jesus comes along and says, no, there is a purity. There is a way of being in the world that would not be considered winning according to the standards of the world.
Yeah.
And Jesus says we are alternative. We are a different way of being in the world. And it takes conversion. It takes God working in us for that to be a reality. And I think that's the challenge. I think that's what Jesus is about.
Yeah, we're going to break it down a little bit. We combined these two, peacemakers and pure in heart, and we're going to talk about pure in heart first because it kind of leads us into what peacemaker is, and we're going to talk about both of these a little bit. But let's start off with like a kind of a biblical definition. I've kind of looked it up, did some searching online, asked AI,
good,
and it kind of circles around to having a sincere motives, but an undivided loyalty to God, and a life free from hypocrisy. So based on one's character, speech, and interactions with others. So that pure heart and the way you talk also, in the very end, that interaction with others can also lead to how are you doing that? Are you being a peacemaker or are you trying to attack other people?
Yeah, I think you're right. One leads into the other. That sense of, always love the word authenticity.
Okay.
That's a really an important word in my life. You know, I do okay. Sometimes I do okay. Sometimes I'm not. But I think that's the invitation, is that your words and your actions are in alignment. And not only in alignment with each other, but your words and actions are in alignment with the teachings and example of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's the invitation, is that we open ourselves to the presence and work of God, to the presence of what we would name in the church as the Holy Spirit. That all of that is in alignment. Because I can be aligned with my words and actions and be a scoundrel. Just because I'm, aligned in words and action, I'm mean to people, that's not following Jesus.
Yeah, that's where hypocrisy comes in. You like authenticity, I like true intentions. What are your true intentions? You could say a lot of things, but you're not doing it. You're following through.
Right. So the gift of Judaism was the law. Now, they weren't the first to do it, but they did make the law as center of a way of living in community. They love the law. The law is important, and it absolutely is. Uh, to have laws in the United States that stopped lynchings, that's really, really important. But how far will not lynching people get you, right? It's really, really important. But does it build true community across races? That's another step that needs to take place. The work of Martin Luther King calling Americans to account that all people are created equal. All right, let's live true to our Constitution. I think that was the brilliance of Martin Luther King. Let's live true to our Constitution. Uh, but laws that protect minorities from abuse is a really good first step. But that's all it is a first step. It doesn't lead to community. And I think these two Beatitudes invite us into moving beyond just following the law to having our hearts changed. And that change of heart is what Jesus is after. Jesus is not satisfied with following the law. He wants our motivations to be pure. And he assumes that they can be. I think Jesus assumes that our motivations can be transformed. That's a
Definitely.
high understanding of what can happen within the humanity.
So, pure of heart, we said, see God, figuratively or actually. So in Psalm 24, verses 3 4, who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in idols or swear by false gods. So, is it that
Right.
end times, that judgment day, that I see God, or figuratively, or do I see God now if I try to have that pure heart? We talked about that, bringing a living bit of heaven down here on earth and living in God's
Right.
kingdom
Right.
here.
So the kingdom of God is right now the best we can do is partially see. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 13. We see now dimly.
Okay.
So part of the human condition is that we don't see fully, but we do see enough that we can recognize, oh, gosh, God is here. God is in this place. And I think that's really seeing God, is to recognize that God is at work in this moment, and that I find myself seeing in a new light, uh, waking up, which is a really important teachings of Jesus, and to be able to see correctly. That's that's why I think there are so many healing of blind people in Scripture, and that can happen. And Jesus says He expects that to happen in us. That in our life we move beyond our egocentricity in order to be touched by grace, so that I can see God at work in our midst in this moment.
So
And
it's a both. It's not an either or.
right,
With that pure in heart, you can see God at work. You can see it in other people. You can see it in God's creation all around us, to where if you
right.
have evil intentions in your heart, you're not going to see God on earth or
Yes, I
afterwards.
think you're right. And I think the important thing is, I like to tell people when if they talk about God or being atheist or whatever, I said, there are people who walk in the room, and as soon as they walk in the room, man, the spirit just drops. This person is not interested in building up the people that are there. This person is not interested in building community. And you can feel that there is a presence when someone walks into the room. And sometimes that presence builds up everybody else. It builds community. And sometimes that presence of an individual, a human, just feels like, oh my gosh, this is just not good.
Yeah.
We can feel that. And I think that's where God is at work.
Yeah. Well, in the God's kingdom, God's first. God's the king.
Right.
And so often leaders want to have people bow down and worship them when they walk in the room. You kiss my butt. I'm
Absolutely.
in large and in charge, and you should be worshiping me. That is not. You're not going to see God's kingdom if that's the way that you treat someone or look at someone or worship someone,
Right.
or you want to be worshipped in that way. So I was going to
Right.
read Luke chapter 21.
Yep.
Verses 1 through 3. So as Jesus looked on, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury, and he also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. Truly, I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these other people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. So there's that following the law. They gave
Their tithe.
their tithe, their requirement for the temple tax, but who really had put their loyalty and faith in God and had
The
pure
one who
heart?
gives 10% or the one who gives 100%. And again, that's that the sense of purity is that 100%, the call to 100%. So blessed are the poor in spirit. The term poor can be like clean. This is a clean shirt. I'm clean because I followed the law. There's that cleanness of my effort. But there's a purity that means a cleanliness and purity in the sense that there's no evil motive within me. That I can't create within myself. That is something that God has to do within me. And I believe that is something that through conversion, I open myself to work with God on that. I, I'm intentionally trying to let go of my egos so that I can be open to what God is doing within me. And I think that sense of purity is the work that God is doing within us all of our life.
Yeah. Without that purity, without that, is God gonna come into your heart? Is God gonna work with you, through you? If you have hard, evil intentions and only care about yourself, there's no room for God to do any work
Right,
with you, i.e., again, the poor in spirit, the humbleness. God will come and that transformation can happen. It's not going to happen with a person that's got an impure, hard heart, is it?
right. Yes, and the idea of following someone who clearly doesn't have a pure heart. To paraphrase my dad, he always said, "If you're going to stir in mud, you're going to get some on you." And to follow a leader that's not pure, and that's not seeking pure in heart, to follow a leader who doesn't have the ability to say that, I'm wrong, I've made mistakes. To follow a leader who doesn't say, I have the humility of recognizing that I don't have all the answers and that we need to discern this, we need to work on this together. Um, that's going to get you muddy.
Yeah.
And how do we discern um, uh, the leaders that we seek to support and follow? Faith in today's world, I think that's right up there among the top. How do we discern what leader earns and deserves our support?
Right. So we're talking about both political leaders, local leaderships, all the way up to
The
the
pastors,
presidency, but all the way all in the church and religious side as well. Your pastoral leaders as well. Where are they leading the congregation in the church? What are they preaching? Are you judging them by the fruits of their labor, or just by the words that
their
might be
title.
coming out of their mouth? And
Because
yes,
I'm the pastor, I'm the authority. Beware of any congregation or any pastor that likes to live with that. Uh, when a church is highly authoritative, and their priorities are purity and obedience, I think you have set yourself up for a cult-like creation. Now, purity is good. We're talking about being pure in heart. Obedience is good. Obedience to the teachings of God and to the presence of God. But when you combine that under the authority of a human, I think you're setting yourself up to go down a road that's not Christ-like. And so that's just kind of, when I look and see these authoritative pastor and people, I'm going to be faithful. I'm following this preacher. I'm following this man. Um, that's real trouble.
right.
if we if the person at the top can't be held accountable and won't be held accountable, and the person at the top surrounds himself, and usually a himself, with sycophants, with lackeys, um, it really is a dangerous situation.
It is, and you got to be careful about lifting up these people. So you're just as much at fault of lifting up these people blindly following as this person that's able to
and they've been
coerce you into doing bad things as
but
well.
there are faith communities that have trained their children from the get-go to be obedient to human authority. And I remember watching Happy Shiny People. It's a documentary about the Duggards, the 19 kids and counting,
Right.
and they talk about blanket training for infants, for toddlers. As soon as a child can move, they put a child on a blanket, and when he starts to crawl off the blanket, they go, "No, no, no, put him back. You stay on the blanket." And when he can crawl farther, they put toys that'll attract the kids outside the blanket. And when a toddler goes after one of the toys, no, they put him back on the blanket. You stay on the blanket. And they teach obedience from toddlerhood. And when they get to be the adults, that's all they know. They don't teach critical thinking. They don't teach, learning something from outside the community. And those are very dangerous, dangerous communities that teach obedience rather than faithfulness to Jesus.
Yeah, if God wanted us to live in a world without any temptation of all, he wouldn't have cast us out of the Garden of Eden. And let's go
Yeah.
all the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Would you put a tree in the Garden of Eden right in front of you with this very, the symbolism here of fruit would,
It's great. It's
is
wonderful. It's wonderful.
here it is, don't touch it. And
Right.
then give you free will and let you do it. So from the very beginning, and even Jesus goes through his temptations, it's there. So
Right.
there's a purity. Steel is how is steel formed? That high temperature forging of a sword is that burning of the carbon. It's a life's work. It's a journey. You're gonna make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Any
Yes.
human isn't perfect. None of us are perfect. And I don't have a perfectly pure heart. Don't think that Duke and I are perfect and
No,
our
not at
hearts
all.
are perfectly pure. We're not. But
So
what's
I
our
think
intention?
I,
What am I
I thought
striving for?
I'm so glad you brought up the creation and the story of the fall, because I think that's just simply our story. You know, give my 3-year-old, 2-year-old a bath, you dry them off, and they get excited and they run around house naked. They don't care. The Garden of Eden, they're naked and they don't care. It's a metaphor for growing up. And at some point, we make a decision to eat from the tree of good knowledge of good and evil. So when I was 7 years old, we moved from Florida to North Carolina. My next door neighbor had a bouncy ball that I liked, and the movers were coming the next day. And so after we got finished playing with the bouncy ball, he left it outside. I picked it up and put it under my mother's bed. And I watched the movers come in and take my mother's bed apart, pick up that ball, put it in a box, and put it in the truck. 7 years old, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was keeping that bouncy ball for myself. That's our story. That's our beginning place.
Right.
And we eat from that knowledge of the tree of good and evil, and there's going to be consequences. And I think that's what that whole story is about. It's not about sending us to hell because we can't be perfectly pure. I don't think God expects that at all. But I think God realizes that our desires are what really leads us. And that's what Jesus is after. Jesus is after our desires that are attracted to love, to God.
Right. Right. Well, I want to continue our discussion on and lead it into being also peacemakers,
Yes.
and I want to read something from Matthew chapter 15 and how this can tie into a pure heart and the peacemaker. So Jesus, as he's going around preaching and teaching, obviously being challenged by the Pharisees constantly.
Yep.
So it comes upon the Pharisees, and they always want to bring up how you're breaking the law.
Right.
So in chapter 15, then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Trying to all about
Yep.
the
Yeah.
law, right?
You're not a
Jesus.
bit. Yep.
So it continues in
You're not
chapter
pure.
10. Yeah, you're not
You're
pure in
not
heart.
pure. You're not obedient.
you're not following the law, and like that makes your heart pure. So
Right.
Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into a man's mouth, does not make him unclean, but what comes out of his mouth, that is what makes him unclean." So the disciples are offended, and they say the Pharisees are kind of offended by you calling them out by what they've said. And he's like, "Don't you understand? Don't you see whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and
Yep.
these make a
Yep.
man unclean. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what make a man unclean, but eating with unwashed hands does not make him unclean." So that words, those impure thoughts, those evil words that come out of your mouth, are you trying to be a peacemaker? Are you trying to stir the pot? Are you trying to create hatred, turn people against each other so you
For
could
power.
benefit?
So
So
you can
you
be
could
that's
benefit.
yes, that's the point. That's the point. Yeah, so the invitation to being peacemakers, it's we can be peacemakers in our relationships. You know, that's I'm a peacemaker. I want everybody to be happy around me. It's a good thing, but it's also not a good thing because I don't always tell the truth because I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to be peace around me. So there's good and bad to everything in this world. But the invitation is to peacemakers that yeah, I can be a peacemaker in the community, which can be a good thing. But the idea is also extends to nations. How do we as a people, as a community, help create peace for the society at large? And so I think Jesus is talking about all of that. And so you look at, someone says a budget. The budget is a moral document. I had a spiritual director says, "Let me look at your calendar, and let me look at your bank book, and I'll tell you what you love." Right.
Yes.
So a moral document. How much money do we spend preparing for war, and how much money do we spend to create peace? And of course, I think it's interesting. They said it's the Department of War, not the Department of Defense now. That may be more of truth in advertising. Uh, and a strong defense is a good offense, is what we're often taught. But shalom, the Jewish concept of shalom, which Jesus was always Jewish,
Peace be with you.
the peace of Christ, the
Right.
peace of God, is not just the absence of conflict. That's not what shalom means. The absence of conflict, I think, it's a good step from war. I don't I don't think war is good at all. It may be what happens and the only thing that can happen. But I think shalom is Jesus's work. And that is not just the absence of conflict, but actually the building of community.
Right.
And
So, yeah, do you send your tax dollars? Do you cut foreign aid that's feeding starving children all over the world so you can buy more bombs and bullets? And so, where's your
or put
priorities?
more money in your pocket.
Or exactly, or the corruption. Yeah. So create a contract and give it to friends so I can
follow
make
follow the
billions.
I'm cynical enough to say follow the money, follow
Yeah.
the money, follow the money.
But
And you can see where people's priorities are, especially politicians.
I'll bring up another point as well here that we don't think of. Again, I'm not pure of heart. I've made my mistakes and don't even realize it. My wife did
Yep.
a great Bible study that she was in, and it was talked about this book they read. It was about gossip. And she said, "Read this book." So I read and did the Bible study along with her from home.
Yeah.
And it talks about the gossip. And again, it goes back to what are your true intentions? So when you're getting into a group that's gossiping and you continue to spread the gossip, why are you doing that? Because you want to be part of the group?
The group. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you want to fit in? So are you saying true words? What are your true intentions? Are you being a hypocrite? Are you giving false testimony, slandering other people so you can elevate yourself? What's the
Yourself in the
reason?
group.
Are you being
Yeah.
a peacemaker by running your mouth with gossip? and it's better to be close your mouth. What is Confucius? Is it Confucius that says better to not say a word in the thought of a fool instead of speaking up and
And
removing all doubt.
all doubt. Right, right. Yeah, I love that.
So sometimes being the peacemaker is as simple as just not spreading false lies. If you don't know what the exactual truth is, then maybe you shouldn't be saying anything at all.
Right. Right. I think you're exactly right. And again, um, I think the gospel is to wake up and to learn how to assess ourselves. Now, I need a community to do that. I need someone like Janet was able to say, and Kevin, you need to read this book. Maybe she was saying that. I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. Maybe she was saying this book
I
is
thought it
written
was
for
because it
you.
was a good book. Maybe, maybe I need
That's
some
right.
help. I don't know.
I don't, but we do need that because we can't see ourselves. We have this log in our eye where we don't see ourselves accurately. So we need to be in community. That's why small groups are so important. That's why the conversations that you and I are having are so important. So I need to wake up to what I'm blind to. And the desire to be a part of a community is a huge, huge motivation. It is so huge that I believe people will be a part of a church, will be a part of community, and they don't agree with their foundations of belief. But the desire to belong,
Fit in.
the desire to fit in is so great that we'll excuse that or will not acknowledge that or will not speak honestly. I don't really think that's right. If I say I don't really think that's right, I might not belong anymore.
Yeah.
So where do we build a community that says we can have lots of understandings, but we're still committed to being together and walking the journey together?
Yeah.
To me, that's the hallmark of a healthy community, Christian community, a healthy congregation, a healthy faith.
Yeah.
Is that we don't have to all, as John Wesley said, we don't have to all think alike, but we can all love alike
Yeah.
and love like Jesus.
And
That's
Jesus,
make sure
yeah,
that Jesus is the foundation of what that love looks like.
exactly. And Jesus assures us that if we do the pure heart and try to be like the peacemaker, even though you're not fitting in here, God knows. Jesus knows. You're going to be blessed. So remember, what are we living for? The fame, fortune, notoriety in this world? Or are you really a Christian? Are you really trying to follow Jesus? So I don't know, faith in today's world, does it have to, can you be pure heart and see God and still not go to the mega church and give all of your money? Because the pastor said, you need to give me more money so I could buy a private jet.
Right, right,
Jesus,
right.
you're not going to buy your way into heaven, people. You're not. So,
And yeah, the invitation of how, again, like I said, the spiritual directive that says, show me your bank account, show me your calendar, and I can tell you what you truly love. And because where you put your money is where you put in your heart. And we do get into tunnel thinking that we have to live this way. I have to have A, B, and C in order to make it in this world. But I think if we open ourselves up and community can help us to do that, that we can live a different alternative lifestyle. An example, my son, pretty earthy guy. He rock climbs, teaches wilderness leadership. It's in Brevard College. He does not have internet in his home. He has a flip phone. He is living his life offline. And if he needs the internet, he has to go to a library or someplace that has internet access. And he is choosing to live in this way as a witness to that, to how the rest of us think we have to live. And, that's something I truly admire. I don't know if I can do that. But it may come to the point that sometime in the near future where I go, that's a lot of money I'm spending on television. That's a lot of money I'm spending on internet access. maybe that's not a faithful way to use my resources.
Yeah, so cancel your Paramount Plus account and save some money.
That's
And if
right.
you haven't
That's
heard,
right.
kept up with the local news of what's going on with that, go Google it.
That's exactly right. That's
So,
right.
but we're going to finish today's episode in Faith in Today's World as we continue our discussions on the Beatitudes. Today we talked about pure in heart peacemakers. Next week we're going to finish up. We're going to talk about blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus is saying you might not go well if you do all these things I tell you to, but it's in the end you'll win.
Again, that the whole understanding of what God is doing in our world and in our lives. The assumption is if we follow God, then good things are going to happen. We'll be healthy, wealthy, and wise. But we do know that we can follow Jesus as closely as possible, and bad things happen in this world.
Yeah.
And in fact, Jesus kind of shows us if you are pure in heart, if you are a peacemaker, it's going to make a lot of people very mad. So persecution should not be unexpected. So when you sign up to follow Jesus, we're signing up that people are going to be upset with us. They tell the off-racist joke and we call them out on it. They are not going to be happy. They gossip about somebody and we call them out and say, I'm not going to gossip. We shouldn't be gossiping here. The group we say that to is not going to be happy about us.
Yeah.
And so these two Beatitudes leads us to the next Beatitude. So next week, I think it's going to be a really good conversation.
Right. So please join us then. Come back and see us next week. So until then, remember, what, Duke? It's never too late
To do the right thing.
Thank you. We appreciate you out there, and thanks for listening. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.